Alarm at 3 AM? Check. Melbourne race? Done. Leclerc's appendix removed? Not yet. We're back to the land of Down Under, where all European F1 fans woke up super early in the morning only to see Ricciardo being eliminated in Q1. Hold your glasses, while we dive into last week's F1 adventures. Even though we all dreamt of the same Australian GP podium, that is not really what happened. I was 10 minutes late watching the race, and it felt like the whole world had already exploded. Before we dive into the full video, I'd like to kindly point out that I am very pleased that I didn't have to listen to the goddamn Dutch national anthem for once. No, please no. Muchas gracias. Starting with the winner of the race would be too obvious, and I'd like to spend some time on our Aussie mate, Ricciardo. Because what the hell is he doing? Ricciardo was my favorite driver when he was still at Red Bull, but since he left, every year the choices he makes seem to get worse and worse. From being a driver lots of teams wanted to being a driver that no one wants anymore, even not for his humor.
Just wanna tickle my scrotum and touch my nutsack.
His performance in his homeland is not anything to write home about. By default, he performs worse than his teammate Tsunoda, which is the obvious reason for Daniel's search history. As much as he is keen to return to Red Bull, I'm afraid he will lose his place in F1 and he might not even make it to the end of the season before getting fired. Your facial expressions will be missed. But Daniel, I just want to say one more thing to you. Never come back and give up. Never give up and come back. While he's praying to do better in the future, we seriously need to talk about Mercedes. They've been trying some things to increase their car's performance, but it seems that all the decisions they are making are not to improve this year's result. Mercedes has signed 2 key technical personnel from Ferrari, including former chief designer Simone Resta. Let's talk about this swappity-swap briefly. Resta and Enrico Sampo are joining Mercedes to improve their overall car and performance, but they aren't allowed to enter this season. Does that mean Mercedes is still the season and Lewis will keep complaining? This weekend, we got a very clear answer. Absolutely. Lewis not only failed to get into Q3 during qualifying, he didn't even have a finish on race day.
I think engine seized.
He had an engine failure in lap 17, which only added more fuel to a fire that was already out of control. All changes Mercedes made to the car to make this Grand Prix better backfired, as it only seems to get worse and worse. The move to Ferrari can't come quick enough for Lewis, but only time will tell if that will improve his overall performance. As Lewis takes a lot of attention during race weekends due to his complaints and underperformance, let's give Russell a bit more screen time. I really can't get bored of all these Russell posing memes. Okay, I'll stop. Back to the story. Oh wait, he fucked up as well. 0 Mercedes cars finished this weekend. What actually happened to George? Russell was hunting down Fernando Alonso late in the race to try to secure a few extra points on what was already a grim day for his team. But it got worse when he lost control of his car and slammed into the barrier. Alonso placed 6th, but after investigation he got a 20-second penalty which moved him to 8th place. He seemed to have made an unusual maneuver which led to the crash of Russell. What was this unusual maneuver? Well, rumor has it Fernando had some Mario Kart bananas in his engine pipe ready to be dropped onto the track. Following this crash, FIA released an official statement. From now on, the driver behind should always signal to the driver in front when it's okay to brake, in order to avoid crashes of drivers who are having difficulties paying attention to what is going on the racetrack. If this rule is not respected, we will be forced to implement an autopilot for braking while in the 1-second gap zone. Before giving the stage to other drivers from this weekend, I want to shine a very bright light on our one and only After this success, Fred Vasseur is wondering what other organs humans can live without. I hope this is not how we see Carlos Sainz during the Japanese Grand Prix in 2 weeks. As Max has broken every curse known to F1, I propose a new one, the smooth operator curse. This is a rare curse occurring only if Carlos Sainz is in pole position. If Sainz leads, there is a 40% chance that Max Verstappen may not win the race and a 10% chance he gets a DNF. George Russell will have a 99% chance of not winning. All jokes aside, you did good, Carlos. You definitely smashed the podium. Do you remember the famous trio we had in 2021? This trio was so solid, it almost seemed a complete new Formula 1 driver was born. Ham Botfer. Even though the combination died in 2021, it suddenly appeared last weekend during the Grand Prix. Let's talk about Battery Voltas. Valtteri Bottas. Since this week he all of a sudden is an Aussie. He's also performing as our all-time favorite Aussie. Not Piastri, obviously. It seems impossible for Sauber to have a normal pit stop time. In a race with 16 finishes, they were still at the bottom of the leaderboard. Not really different compared to the last 2 races, but it should be a sign, right? One thing is for sure, Bottas is not waiting for Stake to build a better car. He applied for a new job and got accepted. And I must say, he looks pretty good in blue. As mentioned, Valtteri's teammate Zhou sucked again this weekend. Funniest thing that happened though was the extremely rare radio conversation Stake F1 had when Max Verstappen was behind Zhou. As we know, that didn't take long. Is Zhouver the new Ferrari? After the horrible performance of Stake again this Grand Prix, some new car concepts for 2025 have been brewing behind the scenes already. This is a leaked concept, guys, so don't share it with anyone. Keep it between you and me. McLaren had a swap session for this Grand Prix. In the Melbourne race, Norris and Piastri took 3rd and 4th places, trailing behind the Ferrari teams Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. This came after McLaren directed Piastri to change positions with Norris before reaching the race's midpoint, as Norris had newer tyres and therefore was quicker on track. I don't think it was really needed though, and Piastri would still keep his 3rd place. Awkward. Guys, what was your first thought when you heard that Albon crashed his own car and was handed Logan's car to race the GP? He must be really ashamed he scored 0 points with Sargent's car. Watching Alex race in Australia was the most boring thing that happened that day. He didn't do anything to end at a better place with only 16 race finishes. If you need to name one thing, it can be anything that you think is the slowest on earth, what would it be? Alpine. I don't even have the energy to say a lot about Alpine. It only gives me Alpane. They should be ashamed of themselves, daring to post a double overtake on Verstappen, lol. I mean, not only the car is bad, but their social media manager is even worse. During qualifying, Gasly was out in Q1 and he performs as someone who places 21st in a 20-driver championship. It's safe to say Pierre is having a continuous nightmare driving for Alpine this season. How long have the horny Horner allegations been going on? For over a month already? Damn. And so far no conclusions or other verdicts. I'm really curious to find out if Horner will stay this full season or not. What do you think? In the meantime, he continues to convince Max it wasn't his finger. Well, Max isn't sure. While the horny Horner saga is still going strong, Max's race went up in smoke. He had an issue with his right rear brake, which started at the very beginning of the Australian Grand Prix. This was the reason behind his early retirement from the race. If we were really honest, he did finish the race first and is for me the driver of the day. Before leaving the Grand Prix, we saw Max on the phone with his dad, complaining about his incident.
It's just an incident.
Yeah.
Driving the same type of car as Max is Checo Perez. He stated that Carlos Sainz also would have won the race if Max didn't get into any car trouble. But how did Checo perform? Well, like we are used to from Checo, as usual, he was handed a grid penalty after an impending incident with Hülkenberg. Therefore, he dropped 3 grid positions for the Grand Prix on Sunday. Even though Checo has the same rocket ship as Verstappen, he keeps on making lousy mistakes that cost him points. Despite him not being last in the driver championship, I'm curious to find out if he can keep his Red Bull seat for the 2025 season. What do you think? And with this, we're at the end of this video. Let me know if you liked it in the comments, and a subscribe would mean a lot. See you in the next one.
Hi, Christian.